back. The first full weekend of college football 2017 begins here tonight in Bloomington in our matchup in Memorial Stadium in the Big Ten. Number 2, Ohio State has come on the road to take on the Indiana Hoosiers. Campbell across the middle. Paris Campbell got the big-time speed. There he goes. Campbell off to the races. 10. Touchdown.
Takes the snap. Lamar zips it open. Fitzpatrick grabbed it in the end zone for a touchdown. Hauled it in right in stride. And those were some big-time throws by Lamar Jackson on that series.
No play action from the pocket. Takes a downfield shot. Ridley's running free. He's got it. Touchdown. Tied.
Second and goal. Touchdown, Michigan.
And how about UCLA's 34-point comeback versus Texas A&M? What a way to kick off week 1 of the college football season. Josh Rosen, quarterback for UCLA, another Heisman candidate, sure submitted his case already in week 1 for the Heisman after that comeback performance. He finished with 491 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, including the Dan Marino style fake spike to win it at the end of the game.
Makes the spike in the end zone. Touchdown. Whoa. Jordan Leslie. The legend of Josh Rosen. In full bloom. Dan Marino would be proud.
It is that time of the week again. Welcome to Dispute Sports. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and listening however you are. I'm your host, Kyle Neumann, live from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Running the show solo today, as Rhett is on vacation, my good friend and co-host. I hope you are having a good time, buddy, on your nice cruise to the Caribbean. But just because Rhett's not here doesn't mean there isn't a lot of sports to talk about that has happened in the last week, because there is. Bringing some new things to the show today. I'm excited to run the show solo, hold down the fort until Rhett is back next week. Today, I will talk week 1 of the college football season, chat about some baseball as the MLB Playoffs are just a month away, and discuss tennis's final major of the year, the U.S. Open, that is currently in progress. We're starting with college football on this week's show, and I hope everybody got to see some of these incredible games already in week 1. I don't know if you're as pumped as I am, but I am pumped. Thank God football is back, because it is the best time of the year. Fall is in the air, and there was plenty to go around of good games. And I want to start with my hometown team, the Indiana Hoosiers, getting to host College Game Day for the first time ever to open week 1 of the college football season, a rare Thursday night game day appearance, and a rare Big Ten week 1 matchup. Hasn't happened in 20 plus years, and Indiana got to host game day. Bloomington, Indiana Memorial Stadium was the site of the big Indiana versus number 2 Ohio State, Indiana's nemesis. Traditionally, though, at least the last few years, Indiana has played Ohio State well, And in the first half, that is what they did. In Tom Allen, Indiana's new head coach's debut, team is pumped, sold out Memorial Stadium, and they jumped on the Ohio State Buckeyes early and often in the first half, shocking Ohio State, controlling the game on offense, playing great defense, and they went into the half with a 14-13 lead on the number 2 team in the nation. Unfortunately, Ohio State found its rhythm and did what the Buckeyes do. It went from a 14-13 game at the half to a 49-21 Ohio State victory. JT Barrett, the quarterback for Ohio State, a Heisman candidate, had himself a nice game, to say the least, especially in the second half. He went 20 for 35 in the game for 304 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was good for a 158.4 quarterback rating. And how about the freshman hyped running back for Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins? Did he have a coming out party or what? He had 29 carries for 181 yards. Wow. And receiving, Paris Campbell for Ohio State. He had 6 receptions for 136 yards and a touchdown. On Indiana's side, the Hoosiers looks like they might have found themselves a quarterback in Richard Legault, who went 40 for 65, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for 410 yards, a 123.6 quarterback rating, not too shabby, and he hooked up with his roommate and number 1 receiver early and often. Simi Cobbs Jr. had 11 receptions for 149 yards and a touchdown. Ohio State could not stop him in the first half. Second half, the Buckeyes did what they did. And the college football season as so. Thought we would have an upset. We didn't. IU fought hard. It is breakthrough for IU. I believe that they are a team that is on the rise. But in the end, Ohio State was the bigger brother. Too talented and wore out the Hoosiers even at home with all of the hype of game day. 49-21, Ohio State gets the victory. Starts off 1-0 on the year. Looking at some other top 25 games, boy, they were dandies. I'll stick in state with the other improving team. The Purdue Boilermakers tried to pull off an upset themselves over the Louisville Cardinals, ranked 16th in the nation. What a game it was. You had Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson from last year returning, looking to try and win another Heisman, taking on a quarterback that Purdue thinks that they have found in David Blau. Just like IU with Richard Legault, they think they have themselves some quarterbacks in the state of Indiana. So let's look at the stats, because it came down to the wire. For a while, it looked like Purdue was going to pull off the upset, and then 2 big interceptions by Louisville's defense sealed the 35-28 victory for Louisville over Purdue in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, neutral site. Lamar Jackson led the Cardinals with 378 passing yards, went 30 for 46, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was good for a 148.6 rating. Oh, yeah, and the man can run the ball, too, with the best of them. Yeah, he had over 100 yards on the ground, 107 on 21 attempts, no touchdown rushes. And receiving, Des Fitzpatrick for the Cardinals had 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. For Purdue, David Blau had 175 yards passing, went 18 for 26, 2 touchdowns, 2 costly interceptions, 135.8 quarterback rating. And wide receiver Jackson Anthrop led the Boilermakers with 7 receptions for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. 4 turnovers in this game for Purdue was ultimately what did them in. That and the spectacular play from Lamar Jackson, who just looked a lot more poised than he did last year. Already seeing that improvement from him as a passer. Impressive win for Louisville and Purdue. Nice, hard-fought game. Looking like they might try and turn their program around. All right, other top 25 games. How about the Alabama and Florida State game, number 1 versus number 3, a game that everybody was talking about. It was I believe the highest ranked teams in the top 5 playing each other in a non-conference schedule to start the year ever. And number 1 Alabama did what they do. They handled Florida State in a game that was good for a while, and then an unfortunate injury with Florida State really turned this game around late in the fourth quarter, but the Tide got the victory 24-7. Jalen Hurts looked good, but he didn't look great passing the ball. Alabama's offense was a little bit stagnant. The defense, as usual, was stout, but Jalen Hurts went 10 for 18 for 96 yards, had 1 touchdown, no interceptions, good for a 118.7 quarterback rating. Jalen Hurts also had 15 carries for 55 yards. But leading Alabama rushing was running back Damian Harris. He had 9 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, Calvin Ridley, the stud receiver, had 7 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. On the other side, Florida State was led passing by their Heisman candidate quarterback, DeAndre Francois, who went 19 for 33 for 210 yards, had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, good for a 108.9 quarterback rating. The unfortunate news for Florida State, however, was Francois going down with a season-ending knee injury with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Brutal sack from behind, and immediately you could tell it was not good. Certainly changes the season for Florida State and the ACC. Now being more up for grabs, looking good for Louisville, but you just hope Francois can get a full recovery and come back better than ever, because, boy, he is a tough kid. But 24-7, Alabama got the victory over number 3 Florida State to kick off the year 1-0. Look at some of these other top 25 matchups real quick before I move on to the next segment. Virginia Tech and West Virginia, matchup of 22 versus 21 last night in a Sunday night special. Had a juicy game. Virginia Tech beating West Virginia by a touchdown, 31-24. LSU beat BYU 27-0. And USC taking on Row the Boat Western Michigan had themselves a game for a while. Heisman candidate and in a lot of people's minds, number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year, Sam Darnold. All the hype around him and this USC team being the favorites in the Pac-12. Sam Darnold struggled against this Western Michigan team. USC ended up getting the victory 49-31. But Sam Darnold did not have a good game. He went 23 for 33 for 289 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. 131.1 quarterback rating, but he did not look like a Heisman Trophy winner in this game. We'll certainly need to clean that up, but they did get the victory nonetheless. Another juicy game was number 11 Michigan taking on number 17 Florida, and Jim Harbaugh started his 2017 campaign with his Wolverines off to a 1-0 start as Michigan downed Florida 33-17 with several players suspended or injured for Florida in this game. Oklahoma beat UTEP 56-7. Oklahoma behind Baker Mayfield, Heisman quarterback candidate going into the year, one of the favorites, and as many analysts say, is the best quarterback in the nation over Sam Darnold. Boy, did he have himself an outstanding game. You couldn't have about had a better game. He only had one incomplete pass, 19 for 20, 329 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 282.7 quarterback rating. My goodness. What a game from the Boomer Sooners. In Tom Herman's debut, it was not a good one for the number 23 ranked Texas Longhorns at home. Lost to Maryland 51-41, and Texas is in some trouble with that program. They have been spiraling downhill the last few years, and that was another poor game from Texas, and not the way you want to start it off. Great win for Maryland in the Big Ten, though. Maybe they will have a turnaround season this year and be a surprise team. Penn State, 6th in the nation. The Rose Bowl runner-ups sure looked like the Big Ten champs last year, 52-0, blanking Akron at home. Wisconsin struggled early against Utah State at home at Camp Randall, the 9th-ranked Badgers, then ran away with it, much like the other top teams did here in Week 1, 59-10, getting the victory over Utah State. Rutgers at home against number 8 Washington fought hard for a while in this game. Washington ended up pulling away. Again, another Heisman candidate quarterback for Washington, Jake Browning, who went 17 for 30 for 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was good for a 158.2 quarterback rating. And Washington got the 30-14 victory in New Jersey. Oklahoma State looked good. The 10th-ranked Cowboys beating Tulsa 59-24 at home. Stanford beat Rice 62-7. South Florida 42-22 over San Jose State. That's 19th ranked Bulls. A lot of people have their eyes on them and Quentin Flowers, who is a potential Heisman candidate too. And Week 1 will conclude with a good game tonight. The 25th ranked Tennessee Volunteers taking on Georgia Tech at 7 o'clock. The Tennessee Volunteers looking to continue to turn that program around and be on the rise. Georgia Tech, always a tough, solid 7-5, 8-4 team. So that should be a good game tonight. And that does Week 1 of the college football talk on Dispute Sports. Week 2 will begin early next week. Will begin on Thursday again. And each week I'm going to try and have a Neumann special on college football talk. So stay tuned for that special segment each week where I catch everybody up on the latest college football action week to week. And I will do that as well as the MLB Playoffs approach. And what a perfect segue as we are knocking the ball out of the park here with the MLB Playoffs approaching. I'm painting the MLB playoff picture for you guys. I love baseball. We haven't talked about it much on this show, but with the playoffs just a month away, it is the perfect time to talk about it. As everybody may know from a show several Dispute Sports shows back, I am a big Cubs fan, basically a Chicago everything fan. But for the Cubs and winning that World Series last year, boy, I don't think in sports I've ever experienced anything more exciting and more satisfying. And I did predict that the Cubs would do it again this year because I believe they have that talented of a team. And in the first half of the season, before All-Star break, they weren't looking so hot. 2 games under 500. But now, now how the Cubbies have turned it around and are in position not only to win the NL Central, but to make a nice run in the postseason again, as they have the second best record since the MLB All-Star break behind the LA Dodgers, and they are getting hot at the right time for sure as the division teams now close out really the last month of the Cubbies' schedule. But obviously want to talk about the Cubs as my favorite team, but really looking like the defending World Series champions right now. As the standings sit right now, the Cubs are in first place in the NL Central, 3.5 games ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. Cubbies are 75-61. The Brewers 72-65. Cubs are 7-3 in their last 10, and hot at home. At one point, just a game or two ago, had won 9 straight at home. Have to win your home series for sure, and that's exactly what the Cubs are doing. The pitching, back to form. Arrieta, Lester, Lackey, Hendricks, the newly acquired Quintana from the White Sox, getting it done. The bullpen looking solid. And then the offense. The offense has scored the most runs since the All-Star break for the Cubs. Schwarber, Hayward, Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, Zobrist. These guys are on fire, and this is what ultimately led to the Cubs winning the World Series last year, and is why they are on a hot streak right now, looking like they are poised to do the exact same thing. The Chicago Cubs doing good work. So the Cubbies in first place in the Central. Let's look at the other divisions in the National League. The Washington Nationals are in first place in the NL East by a whopping 15 games over the Miami Marlins. Washington 82-54, 6-4 in their last 10, solidly penciled in to that East Division seed. That crown, definitely the Nationals. They have been solid all year long. Harper, Scherzer, Murphy, Rondon. This team is going to be a team that will give teams like my Cubbies trouble in the playoffs. And Bryce Harper is looking to take his Nationals and do better than they did last year as the number 2 seed, getting upset by the 3-seeded Dodgers in 5 3-2 in the NLDS. So that's the NL East. Got the Cubs in the Central. In the West, already mentioned the Dodgers. Dodgers have been the best team in baseball by far all year long. Dangerously deep. They're 92-44. They are 13.5 games ahead of the Arizona Diamondbacks. However, the Dodgers are struggling as of late. At one point, they hadn't lost 2 games in a row for 3 months. And now, in the last 10 games, the Dodgers are 2-8. Not the way you want to try and end the season if you're LA. But nonetheless, still going to be the number 1 overall seed, is going to get that home field in the NLDS. So whoever ends up meeting them is going to have a tough task, and it's going to have to go through Los Angeles. So that's the NL side. The AL side, Boston just finished a series against the rival Yankees. Boston is 77-60. They're 3.5 games ahead of the Yankees in the East. Yankees 73-63, 5-5 in their last 10. Boston 4-6. That division race is going to come down to the wire. You have Baltimore that is still in reaching distance, 7 games back at 70-67. Tampa Bay 9.5 back at 68-70, and Toronto 14 back, pretty much out of the division picture at 63-74, not playing good baseball as of late. In the AL Central, the World Series runner-ups, Cleveland Indians, hot, 10-0 in their last 10 games, 80-56. 9 games ahead of the second-place Minnesota Twins, and rolling, looking like they are going to represent again for the AL and make a run, as last year they were the number 2 seed, but they are close on the heels of Houston for that number 1 seed. In the West, the final AL division, just mentioned the Astros have been the next best team in baseball behind the Dodgers. On the AL side, it's been the Houston Astros, 83-53, 6-4 in their last 10. They are 13.5 games ahead of the LA Angels and have locked up that division and are looking good for the number 1 seed, but still a lot of baseball left this last month. Still work to do to keep that number 1 seed, but the Astros have been a headache for other teams. So you look then at the wild card standings for the playoffs. In the NL, it's Arizona with the first wild card spot with a 79-58 record, 10-0 in their last 10 games. The Cardinals are hot. The Diamondbacks are hot, and they have a close race going with second place Colorado, who they just got done beating in a series. The Rockies in second place in the NL wild card at 72-64, 4-6 in their last 10, but just a few games difference there for 1 and 2. Milwaukee on the outside looking in third, right outside of that second wild card spot of the Rockies. Milwaukee 72-65, 6-4 in their last 10. St. Louis still hanging around, 69-67. They're 3 games back from the wild card spot. Miami 5 games back from it at 67-69. Pittsburgh, the next best team that has a chance, they're 7.5 games out at 65-72. The Buccos. So that race is going to come down to the wire. On the AL side, Wild card number 1 goes to the New York Yankees right now, 73-63, with the Twins on their heels in the number 2 spot, 71-65. They're 6-4 in their last 10. And Baltimore, again, we have a massively close race on the AL side too for the wild card spots. Baltimore right outside of that second wild card spot, just a game and a half back of the Twins. They're 70-67, 8-2 in their last 10, playing great baseball. The LA Angels also a game and a half out from that second wild card spot. They're 70-67, 5-5 in their last 10. The Seattle Mariners, 2.5 games out of the wild card spot, 5-5 in their last 10. They're 69-68. The Texas Rangers, only 3 games out, 68-68. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Kansas City only 3.5 out of the wild card. Tampa Bay only 4 out. And even down to Toronto, 8.5 games out. What a deep AL this year. So how exciting will that be this final month of baseball? Keep your eyes on that. But the playoff picture is shaping up. The races are close in both the AL and NL. Couple divisions have been run away with on both sides, but still a couple up for grabs. And it will be another exciting October. So stay tuned, baseball fans, and go Cubs. All right. Now, on to the final segment of this week's Dispute Sports show. We're talking tennis. Shout out to Alex Stewart and Josh Smith, my dudes. Western Kentucky University tennis. Legends. We're talking the final major of the year in tennis. That is the U.S. Open. And I'm going to only talk about the men's side, the men's singles side. And there have been some headlines going into this tournament, to say the least. One of the big headlines was all of the injuries that have occurred, where it has left this tournament up for grabs. Andy Murray withdrew from the U.S. Open because of a hip injury, the world's number 2 ranked player. That led to some more talk about notable injuries, players being out. That would be Novak Djokovic, injured his right elbow. He decided to call it quits for the year. 5 of the world's top 11 players are out of the U.S. Open. Defending champ Stan Wawrinka had left knee surgery out. Stan Wawrinka won last year's U.S. Open, defeating Novak Djokovic in 4 sets. And Kei Nishikori, injured his right wrist, is out. And Milos Raonic, left wrist injury, had to withdraw as well. So talk about wide open, and talk about another potential Nadal and Federer match. But this time, the way the bracket was set up, not in the finals, in the semifinals. So those are the injuries that have occurred for big-name tennis players going into this U.S. Open. So let's take a look now at the U.S. Open then. You still had Roger Federer. You still had Rafa Nadal. You still have Sam Querrey, the American. You have Del Potro, Thiem. Still several of the top tennis players in it. And the U.S. Open is moving right along as the quarterfinals. The round of 16 is going on. The quarterfinals are already almost all the way set, as Rafa Nadal has moved into the quarterfinals. The number 1 seed from Spain, Go Nadal, is into the quarterfinals, and he will take on Andrei Rublev from Russia. Roger Federer is in the round of 16, the 3 seed from Switzerland. He is set to take on Philipp Kohlschreiber from Germany. I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Roger Federer for a trip to the quarterfinals, the way he's been playing. You have Juan Martin Del Potro from Argentina taking on Dominic Thiem, the Austrian. Should be a good 4th round matchup there. Sam Querrey defeated Zverev in straight sets to move on to the quarterfinals. The 17th ranked player is set to take on Kevin Anderson from South Africa. You have in the next quarterfinal matchup, you have Carreno Busta taking on Schwartzman. So what does this set up? What does this mean? What is my prediction? My prediction is that Rafa Nadal will move on to the semifinals to take on Roger Federer. And once again, we get the epic Federer-Nadal match. And guess what? The winner, if this happens, the potential Nadal-Federer match, if it happens, the winner of that match will become the world number 1. And what's incredible to me is that we are still getting Federer and Nadal at a high number 1, number 2 in the world type of players. And they are past their prime, and it looks like they have their second wind. It's incredible. 10 years ago we were getting this, and we're still getting it. It's greatness, folks. Some of the greatest athletes of our time, and we are witnessing the LeBron James of tennis, the Michael Jordan of tennis, with these two stars. And if they end up meeting in the semifinals, tune in to the U.S. Open from New York City. You will not be disappointed. Champions, legends, Hall of Famers, couple of the greatest tennis players to ever play. And I'm going to give a shout out also to my buddy Juan Arias Del Rio. Big Rafa Nadal fan from Spain. This has been an exciting tournament. The women's side has been exciting too, as the headlines there are Serena Williams out, Venus Williams still in it, Maria Sharapova back from her suspension and looking good, still in it. I'll put my money on Venus Williams or Maria Sharapova for sure. But we're witnessing greatness still with Nadal and Federer, so that is very exciting. I'd like to see the American Sam Querrey get into the semifinals and potentially end up playing Rafa Nadal or Roger Federer. I think that would make for a great matchup in the U.S. Open final. And of course, how fitting would it be to have an American representing for the United States in the U.S. Open in New York. But Federer will have his work cut out for him, taking on either the 24th ranked Del Potro or the 6th ranked Thiem. As again, Federer, the 3rd ranked player in the world, looking to move up that ladder still getting it done on fire. So that concludes the U.S. Open talk and the Disputes Sports segments. Before I say sayonara, I am going to continue a tradition unlike any other. That's right, no disputing. That is the Random Facts segment where I give you a fact and hopefully blow your mind. Today's no disputing fact is the only 2 days of the year on which there are no professional sports games. That's MLB, NBA, NHL, or NFL are the day before and the day after the MLB All-Star Game. I'll repeat that. The only 2 days of the year on which there are no professional sports games are the day before and the day after the MLB All-Star Game. Interesting stuff. And that does it for today's show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget, you can now subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, Spreaker, or SoundCloud, and have every episode available to you as soon as they are posted each week. You can also catch all of our podcasts on our website, DisputeSports.com. Follow us on Twitter at DisputeSports1, at Kyle M. Neumann, at Rhett Hensley, and like and follow our Facebook page, Dispute Sports. Until next week, when Rhett is back with me, remember, Dispute Sports. Anything sports, anytime, anywhere. Have a great day.